Hello, my loves, and welcome back to This is Mariya podcast. Today, we're continuing our conversation on dimensions, and we're going to dive into dimension 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to walk you through the differences between them, why they have been created in the first place, and when souls incarnate in these dimensions, why would they come in the first place? How do they feel at soul level? What are the differences? What are the similarities? We're diving right in today. Before we get started, just a couple of reminders. I have another podcast called Our Sacred Universe available on Spotify and Apple Podcast, and that is solely devoted to meditations, guided meditations and journeys. We're uploading new ones every Sunday. Please come meditate with us. The more the merrier. And I promise you there's so much healing that awaits you if you choose to join us on Our Sacred Universe. And for those of you that would love to dive a little bit deeper with me, I invite you to get my book, 72 Keys to Manifestation or An Ancient Path of a Modern Day Alchemist. It's a book that is, just like the title says and just like the title implies, a book about manifestation. How can you attract the life that you want? But also, this book is so much more than that, if we're being frank. It is going to help you deepen your spiritual practice. It is a very rich book around diving into the science and the study of energy, but also from the practical perspective. It explains how the energy works, how you could leverage the energy to your advantage, what are the different sources of energy, what are the different energy states, and how you can best direct energy to get what you want in life. So I invite you to check it out. It's available through Amazon, Kindle, and Audible. All right, my loves, let's dive into dimensions. 5D. 5D, I feel like if you're in the spiritual field or if you're curious about spiritual content, you'll probably hear about 5-dimensional consciousness and 5-dimensional worlds literally every day. It is just such a common thing. Now, I find, interestingly enough, that people don't really fully know what a 5D is and what are the 5-dimensional worlds. Now, if you would like to get a little bit of a broader introduction into what dimensions are and why they've been created by the architect of the matrix in the first place, please refer to my previous episode where I talk about dimensions 1, 2, and 3. It does have a pretty general overview of the dimensions, but you should think of dimensions as essentially the different games that you could play at soul level. And while different, shall we say, spaces that contain multiple games inside each of the spaces, but these games are similar vibrationally or in terms of the particular questions or experiences that they're offering you. So there are a lot of similarities between the worlds in each of the dimensions and between the experiences that you can have in each of the dimensions. So a lot of incarnations in, let's say, in a first dimensional space are going to feel very similar to one another. A lot of the incarnations in a third dimensional space are going to feel very similar to one another vibrationally. Again, in terms of the lessons that you can learn, in terms of the outcomes you can receive, in terms of the speed of evolution, how fast versus slow things move, et cetera, right? So your experiences are very much defined and your perception is very much defined by which dimension you incarnate in. Of course, dimensions get progressively more expansive as we move from lower to higher. They get more complex, but it's really what's expanding is your perception. What you're able to perceive is more. It's almost like every time there is a dimensional upgrade, you get another facet or another sense that enables you to experience reality. There's more of that reality. So there's all of the previous dimensions are available to you and another facet, right? It's like growing the 6th sense, then the 7th sense, the 8th sense. So it's, your perception is expanded. Now, what is the 5th dimensional world and what are they and why have they been created in the first place? So when the architect has actually, hold on. Why am I even talking to you about the 5th dimension? I have just realized that we skipped the 4th dimension. And this is the greatest irony of all because so many people skip the 4th dimension. You know what? Why don't we do it justice and start with the 4th dimension? Because our previous episode, we finished at the 3rd, and now the next one is 4th. And it is what it is, and I apologize. Because the 4th dimension, the 4th dimensional space, these dimensions are dimensions of order. Dimensions of order. as opposed to chaos, if that makes sense. What does it mean? Fourth dimensional spaces often are worlds or contain worlds that operate according to a very strict set of rules. They're very regimented. From some perspective, they may seem to you or they may come across to you as either militaristic type of worlds where there are crazy discipline or almost mechanical worlds. For instance, right? Like imagine a world that is a Swiss watch. Like if a Swiss watch was a world that you could incarnate in. The Swiss watch is a very particular mechanical construction. It's a mechanism that operates to a very specific set of rules, right? And, the movement of every little particle within that watch is predetermined. They all have their spin. They all have their pace and all of that. It's a very regimented world, right? Everything is pre-written. Everything is predetermined. And so fourth dimensional worlds, because of that, can come across as either technical worlds, like how technology operates, especially hardware, right? Hardware type worlds, the worlds where law and order run supreme. Why would a soul choose to incarnate in such world? What are the experiences that fourth dimensional worlds offer to souls? Why are they an attractive prospect for incarnating? The main question that a soul would ask itself before incarnating in a fourth dimensional world is, how does X work? Like, how does something work? Like, that is the question that would propel you into wanting to incarnate in a fourth dimensional world. So there's a little bit of that scientific mind or scientific curiosity to get into the nitty-gritty, the details, right? So this is not the big picture thinking. This is how do the nuts and the bolts of a system operate, and experiencing the nuts and the bolts, right? And that is the fourth dimensional world. What are the experiences that they offer to souls? A, discipline. You can really learn discipline. B, you can really learn how multiple things in an ecosystem come together to produce a result. So teamwork, right? Because all the cogs in the wheel need to be turning a certain way, or need to be operating together for the whole construction to live up to its purpose, right? Another thing that's actually really, really interesting in fourth dimensional worlds, things like free will are second stage, right? So some souls choose to incarnate in the fourth dimensional world when they would like to explore this concept of free will or the lack of thereof. Because fourth dimensional worlds do not really offer any free will, right? You are a cog in a wheel and you're supposed to move the way you're supposed to move. And usually you're born into a function, you kind of die, in that function. You don't usually move around because, again, it's very regimented. It's very rigid as a world or the type of world. It's almost like you have a particular function to perform. So go ahead and do it. And that's what you do. It's almost like, if you guys imagine like a chessboard, right? Like with all of the chess figures, if you were the queen on the chessboard, you only move a certain, this is the way that you move. Or if you're a pawn, this is the way that you move, and you don't move any other way. It's like a regular or like a regimented way where the rules are very strict and they're very precise, and they have predetermined and very transparent. There are a lot of transparency in this world, right? So imagine you chose to be a pawn, right? In a game of chess in a fourth dimensional world, in a fourth dimension. By the way, the game of chess, you could actually play as one of the figurines in the game of chess within a fourth dimensional world. This is not an example that is too far-fetched. Like the worlds of chess exist, and you could incarnate and say you're a pawn, right? Now, of course, the pawn is a low-level figure. Like, you really don't have any rights, so to say, right? You're not the fancy figure. You cannot do any checkmate business, right? So you don't really call the shots in this world, right? So as a soul, you may find, that social, shall we say, mask or that role, that social role, to be interesting to you for some reason, one reason or another. Or you may choose that, okay, no, actually you want to experience being the queen or the king or the horse, whatever. Because of that, who you are really predetermines how you move, what you can and cannot do, right? And because of that, this is an interesting experience because it is quite constraining. And when experience is constraining, it's actually very, very easy for you to understand yourself and to understand the world. Because if the constraint somehow doesn't really jive with who you are, then that could be a very effective tool of self development and like understanding who you are, like learning of like know thyself, right? Like this could be a means to an end, for instance, right? So what I'm here to kind of, I guess where I'm going with this is very simple. There are some worlds that enable so much free will. Like a lot of third dimensional worlds actually are completely free will based because you need a conflict. And that means that you need people, beings, souls, to really be able to take a stance and say, no, this is my free will, this is what I choose. And then of course you can change your mind. But the whole reason that this conflict still exists in third dimensional worlds is because there all of this free will to go around, right? And the boat is somebody's always going to rock that boat. Fourth dimensional world, nobody rocks the boat. In fact, if you choose not to follow the rules, you get off the chessboard very, very quickly in fourth dimensional worlds because things like insubordination, things like, again, not wanting to follow the rules, all of the rebellious spirits, all of these, revolutions, they are being squished in the bud. They're being nipped in the bud, in fourth dimensional worlds. Now, at the same time, what other options are available to you? You can be the law enforcer in a fourth dimensional world. It is a very interesting potential incarnation, right? So you can be, it's almost like you are here to make sure that you preserve the integrity of the system, or you preserve the integrity of the chess game, or you preserve the integrity of the Swiss watch, or you preserve the integrity of the computer system, right? Like let's say your desktop, for instance, could be a proxy for a fourth dimensional world because it is very much predetermined. The motherboard is a very particular way. How the electricity moves to power the machine is a very predictable system. Once you program it, you kind of like set it and forget it and then just operates. And yes, it needs to be maintained. But, there is beauty in being in charge of a system from the perspective of an overseer or a guard, to make sure that all of the little cogs in the wheel are operating exactly like they should. So it's actually, these worlds are really, really, really good to learn management. And to learn building really, really solid foundations. By the way, do you guys know how to, what's the quickest, best way to understand dimensions without understanding dimensions is understanding numerology. So there is a reason why these dimensions have numbers. There is a reason why a fourth dimensional world has a 4 and the fifth dimensional world has a 5 is because this is one of the languages of the architect. So if what I'm telling you doesn't really make sense, or you're struggling to memorize what I'm saying and how these worlds interconnect, refer back to numerology and what the different numbers mean, right? Because 1 is always oneness, is all about singularity, right? That's the first dimensional world. It's all about oneness and the absolute. 2 is about that's your divine feminine. That is the pair, right? That's about observation. It's like me and another object, let me observe it. 3 is that first alchemical number of masculine and feminine energies coming together. There's also the third wheel. Oh my God, and something is not jiving. So third dimensional worlds are all about tensions of the triangle. Fourth dimensional world is a square. A square is it's the masculine number of law and order, right? So that's why the fourth dimensional worlds are dimensions of order. And that is how you should think about it. So they are here to build strong foundations, or they're here to help somebody experience that law and order firsthand, or to help somebody experience building law and order firsthand, or enforcing law and order firsthand, right? Or fighting against law and order, right? All of these things, but the main pillar of the world that is a 4 is law and order. Now we're moving on to fifth dimensional worlds. The main pillar of fifth dimensional worlds is harmony. So fifth dimensional worlds are the worlds of harmony. They're all about, and the main question is essentially, how can we all harmonize? How can we take all of these different viewpoints, different souls, different backgrounds, different, castes, stratas, whatever you like, whichever facet of division you can come up with. How can we take all of that division and bring that into harmony? Not yet unity, right? Fifth dimensional worlds don't worry about unity. We're not oneness. We are harmony and harmonious coexistence, right? These are very harmonious worlds usually. They are the worlds that don't experience too much antagonism. They may have different social groups and different social classes and many, many species, but they all are living in an ecosystem that is balanced. It's like, let's hold hands and sing Kumbaya. And let's figure out how we can keep holding hands and singing Kumbaya in perpetuity. The reason fifth dimensional worlds are amazing is because if you're coming off of a third dimensional experience, that has been a lot of tension. A fifth dimensional experience is like a respite. It's a breath of fresh air. It's like the exhale of, oh my God, finally. Because pretty much every single third dimensional being, or like somebody who's experienced a third dimensional world, craves in that moment as they're experiencing the rough seas of the third dimensional world filled with tension and conflict, they are thirsting for, they are craving that harmony, that and the end game is, okay, like let's just find the resolution. They're craving the resolution, that's the word, right? To the conflict. In the fifth dimensional world, the conflicts get resolved, right? Yeah, there will be spikes of new conflict, but they usually get resolved very quickly. The problem with fifth dimensional worlds, and that's part of the reason why long term they may be problematic. Very often, what I see when I notice like planets go into fifth dimensional consciousness, the amount of quote unquote time, and time is relative, of course, but the amount of time that a planet would spend in a fifth dimensional consciousness is going to be quite short. So usually planets don't stick around in fifth dimension for quite some time. It's a transient dimension. Why? Is because there's only so much harmony you want to take until you stop growing, or you can take until you stop growing. It's kind of like if the seas are never rough and if it's always summer and it's always warm, are you really learning anything? Now, of course, it could still be millions of years from Mother Earth once it comes into the fifth dimension. But as a general rule, planets tend to spend way more time in dimensions like 3D or 7D or like 11D for that matter, because there is like the soup of happening is thicker there. There's a lot more to do. There's a lot more to learn. There is conflict, and conflict truly makes the world go round. Now, fifth dimensional worlds, again, are worlds based on harmony. Now, what does it mean, right? Like, and specifically, like, to your point, like, what do people even do if everybody's always happy? Usually, the way fifth dimensional worlds evolve, or the way you create a happening in a fifth dimensional world, is by an outside influence. Usually, there is something that comes into a harmonious ecosystem, or somebody that is born into a harmonious ecosystem that creates a temporary ripple effect. Or like a temporary problem. Like the black sheep comes into a family and all of a sudden like, oh, wow, they're different. And then it's the process of, okay, adjusting, being flexible, molding, shifting, changing, transforming, so that eventually you can be like, okay, harmony again. So it's fifth dimensional worlds are, large periods of harmony interjected by short periods of disharmony, usually from another world or some kind of external influence. And very often, those external circumstances need to be pre-planned in fifth dimensional reality by the architect, so that something, happens and all of a sudden, like essentially the adversary or the adverse circumstances need to be written into the script. Otherwise, those worlds are not going to attract them. That's the problem, right? And that's why the fifth dimensional worlds could get boring. It's like, imagine living in, well, I guess you guys don't have to imagine, but maybe you could. Like, imagine living in the Garden of Eden. At some point, it's going to get boring. Like, honestly, I'm not even surprised that we have this whole, Adam and Eve conundrum where they ended up leaving. Because when things are too perfect, sometimes you're like, okay, like, I'm bored. Like, what else is here? So that is actually a common refrain with fifth dimensional worlds. And so, like I said, souls don't usually stick around. Like, you feel like you want to experience peace, and you think like, what's not to love? Like, let's just all be in harmony. But it does get repetitive very, very quickly. So that's the challenge with fifth dimensional worlds. But hey, if you're coming out of a 3D into a 5D, oh my God, it's like, wow, breath of fresh air. Oh my God, this is what we've been waiting for. But again, not much conflict. So this is more of a, it's a different experience. It's a different experience. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, six-dimensional worlds. Six-dimensional worlds are, and again, going back to numerology, right? Like six is, technically the number of karma, among other things. But six-dimensional worlds are actually the worlds of accumulating your power and dimensions, right? So the sixth dimension is the dimension that enables you to accumulate your own power the most. I would say of all the dimensions that exist outside of all the dimensions that exist in the, 1 through 12 arena, the sixth dimensional worlds are perhaps closest to the third dimensional world. So if you were looking for a twinsy dimension, that would be the sixth. Now, of course, sixth is a lot more expanded, right? So it's not the same. The conflict is not the same, but it's a similar type energy, right? Third dimensional world is one triangle, sixth dimensional world is two triangles. It's still the triangular energy, right? So there is a little bit of me versus them or us versus them. And there's a little bit of that division again in the sixth dimensional world, but this one is very different, right? Again, the questions that souls ask themselves prior to incarnating in 6D space is, what is what does my power look like? Or what do I look like when I'm in my full power? Or what facet of my power matters to me the most? So like all of the questions around power, personal power, or power struggle are going to be decided, or are going to be answered, frankly, if you are willing and interested to incarnate in a 6D, or one of the worlds of the 6D spectrum. So very often you would pick a lane, right, at soul level. The particular power that you would like to develop. I don't know. It could be a silly example like influence, a power of influence through speech, for instance, right? Or it could be a power of, becoming a builder of something or creator of something, like your creative powers. Or it could be the power of beauty, right? Like, beauty is also a power. Like there are many facets of power. So at soul level, you may be like, okay, I want to accumulate a particular power, or like healing is a power, for instance, right? And you may want to become the best healer there is. A sixth dimensional world would be a very fertile ground for you to develop or hone in on a particular skill set, because it enables laser focus on things. Missions in sixth dimensional. In a sixth dimensional world are challenging. They're very fast-paced, and they are, they're heightened in terms of complexity. Very complex missions, usually everything in the kitchen sink. But, and it's because they're like stretching you almost, like they're molding you to be the best version of you that you can be as it relates to a particular facet of your power, right? So all of the experiences that you would go through in 6D are here to mold you into a particular version of yourself that you would like to become. And, they would do that through challenge. They would do that through putting you on the spot. They would do that through taking you into so well outside of your comfort zone, into such, depth of emotion or feeling, that, you're almost like there's no other way for you to move forward but evolve or like accumulate a particular power. So 6D is not a walk in the park, you guys. It's not a very easy dimension, just like 3D. 6D though, it's a little different in a sense that the conflict in a third dimensional world is very much noticeable. It's usually an overt conflict. As a general rule, there are no big, whatever are the main conflicts on the planet, most beings on that planet are aware that there are antagonistic energies. In sixth dimensional worlds, not so much. There are a lot more things that are like hidden agendas, hidden influences and trends that you are unaware of. So like 6D really surprises you. There are things that are coming out of the woodworks and you're like, I did not see that coming. What the hell is this? Because of that, there is actually a lot of backstabbing in 6D. There are a lot of things that, like covert, hidden, secret, all these secret societies. It's a little bit of, now it's intellectual in a sense, right? Because there's all of these games that are played behind the scenes in order to win. But yeah, there's these are challenging worlds. They're not friendly worlds. They're not easy worlds. They push your limits. They push your buttons. They're to literally you're going to be backed into a wall with like a gun to your head. And then you're like, what do you do now? Right? Like it's that type of experience. And because of that, it kind of does go hand in hand with a lot of covert things. Right. And then, it does force you to answer the question of who am I truly? But most importantly, what is the true facet of my power? And how deep does my power go? And how far am I willing to go to become powerful? How far am I willing to go to get what I want? So a lot of these things happen, and you do accumulate so much karma, by the way, during these incarnations because they're so challenging. And it's like the complexity level of lives in 6D is like it, very often 8 out of 10, right? So like very challenging incarnations, very fast paced. The soup of happening is very thick. A lot is going on for you personally, usually individually, and at the collective level. Now, one thing that I didn't tell you that could be quite interesting is there are dimensions that are usually, there are a lot of dimensions that are built for where a lot of the games that you would play are collective. And then there are dimensions where a lot of the games that you would play would be individual. So dimensions 1 and 12 are dimensions where you usually play individual games, meaning like it's kind of like a solo player. Guys, like these games when you're just a solo player. And then there are games when there are multiple players, right? And you're kind of competing with one another. So dimensions 1 and 12 are usually solo games, solo, like solo player, one player, where first you're the absolute and you're one, and it's just like the thing that you do. And then the 12th dimension, and not to get ahead of myself, but it's the end of the cycle and it's the full completion. And that's where you have to face all of your karma. And it's usually an individual program. It's kind of like being homeschooled when it's like you and your tutor or you and your coach. And that's all. Like it's not a collective dimension. Usually dimensions 2, it could be, both actually. The second dimension is both individual, but there are enough like solo incarnations in there. Enough of the 3 through 11, most of them tend to be collective incarnations, right? So in this, where I was going with this is like in the 6th-dimensional world, very often it's a collective incarnation with a lot of beings incarnated all at the same time, all with their agendas and all working on their own particular facet of power very, very quickly. And because of that, there are a lot of the souls, they have already accumulated their power that go there, right? And so there are a lot of strong opinions. There are a lot of people who, and of course, when you're trying to learn power, very often it comes at the expense of other people, right? Or other beings in that game. And so there is a lot of that, either trying to influence others or coercing them or like, making them do things according to like your agenda. So there are a lot of agendas. Actually, I would say that the 6th dimension is a dimension of agendas, like no questions asked for sure. We have time to go over dimension 7. Dimension 7, again, going back to the divine numerology, right? It's a masculine number. It's the number of the intellect, among other things. But that the dimension 7 is usually the dimension of knowing, right? So the value for the worlds of this dimension is knowing. Knowing what, you may ask? A little bit of everything. So know thyself, know yourself, get to know the other, get to know the society as a whole, get to know the game that you're playing, get to know the universe that is around you, right? All of these questions come front and center in the 7th dimensional world. What is really, really important for, beings that come into a 7th dimensional world is learning, right? These are the worlds that really thrive on curiosity, on invention, on pushing the boundaries, not taking no for an answer. These are extremely diverse worlds because usually they are, again, like they really foster creativity, they foster curiosity, and they attract souls that are excited about getting to know things and always learning and needing to understand like the big picture, but also all the minutest details and all, everything in the kitchen sink. And it's like an encyclopedia of a world, right? Meaning it's like A to Z and just so full and so abundant. And because of that, these are some of the most intricate worlds. Once you get into a world, it's like a fascinating world, but it's really complicated to understand it. It could be the powers that be are very difficult to understand, or the social structure is so intricate that you're not always sure, what influences what and how things correlate to one another and what is the cause versus the effect. Like all of these worlds are really, really interesting. And also creativity is abound in seventh dimensional worlds. And in general, right, a lot of the higher frequency, high dimensional worlds are worlds of instant manifestation. Instant manifestation is available actually in 5D already and up, right, where you become an instant creator. In 7D, a lot of souls are creating a lot of things all at the same time. And other souls are getting to know the things that are being created in real time, right? So these worlds are, they actually are usually self-replicating worlds. So they're the worlds that, that use intelligence, natural intelligence. It's like a world that keeps building itself as souls are exploring it. And so and they're also a little bit like, you can really go into a rabbit hole in 7D because it's really, really hard to know the entirety of something, right? So part of the challenges of these worlds is how do you deal with uncertainty? How do you get to know a system that keeps self-replicating and keeps, building more and more facets to itself, right? So every 7D world is an intellectual challenge. So because of that, it is quite fascinating. And again, because there are so many co-creators within those worlds, they become very complex and very, very fun. I would say that some of the most adventurous incarnations you can have are in 7D. Because when I say know thyself, it's not just an intellectual getting to know. It's the intellectual, it's the emotional, it's the energetic, it's, all of it, right? Like all facets of you want to know and experience the world and the different facets of this world. So it's a big adventure park. It's like going to Disneyland. Now, of course, there are, like with every dimension, right? The world, the planets and the planetary systems, the galaxies that are available within 7D, they're plentiful. And, they can, there is a big range of worlds for you to experience. Some worlds can be like steampunky and other worlds can be, like fantasy worlds with like magic and unicorns and dragons. And, there could be other types of worlds that are very, like academic in nature, right? So like there are all of these different experiences. Now, of course, depending on the preferences of your soul, you're going to be like, well, I'm excited to learn everything there is to learn about the worlds with magic. And then you're going to go down that rabbit hole for potentially many incarnations, right? And you become a co-creator of this world. But know thyself, know the other, and know the system. That is the main driver, this intellectual curiosity for, 7D consciousness and 7D worlds. Okay, so we went over 4, 5, 6, and 7 dimension. We did 1 dimension extra compared to what I was going to, and that's why we had to go a little faster. You guys, do you have any questions on dimensions in general or any of the dimensions that we have gone through? I am ready to take the questions from the collective. The question is, why did you mention in the past episode that planet Earth could have gone to another dimension and didn't have to go to 5D? Why did it not choose to go to 7D? Because that sounds fantastic. I love you guys. Your questions sometimes are so random. Why? Because it was the choice of the energy, or shall we say the soul, that is currently incarnated inside of the planet we call Gaia. It was the choice of that soul. It's like, you guys pick where you would go on vacation. Like, are you going to this country or that country, this city or that city, And sometimes it's just a choice. It's like, do you want to experience the mountains? Do you want to experience the forest? Or do you want to experience the ocean? You pick. And sometimes you're like, it's not like I dislike the ocean, but I just feel like going to the forest, right? And it's like just a random, like what feels good. It just happens so that at this moment in time, planet Gaia wants to experience a respite. It wants to go back to harmony. It wants to go back to its femininity. And a lot of fifth dimensional worlds, because they're dimensions of harmony, they are feminine focused dimensions, right? And that is the other part that we haven't really, spoken too much in this context. But third dimensional worlds are alchemical worlds, right? They are the worlds where masculine and feminine energies are present. So dimensions 3, 6, and 9 are alchemical worlds. Masculine energies and feminine energies are equally present. Dimensions 1 1, 4, and 7 are more masculine. They're experiencing different facets of masculinity, right? So 1 is exploring oneness, being one, being absolute. And because of that, being the first, right? The energy of Aries. 4 is experiencing and exploring the energies of building foundations and that masculine builder energy. And 7 is the intellect, right? And then we have feminine dimensions as well. 2 is the observation, right? It's all about perception, perceiving the other. 5 is about harmony, a very feminine, harmony, beauty, very Venusian energies, if you will. And 8, we haven't gotten to 8, but it is experiencing the land of no limit. The 8th dimension is the dimension without limit. It's literally like if infinity and eternity were encapsulated in a dimension, that would be like dimension 8. That's the pinnacle of femininity. It is experiencing this fullness of everything, the fullness of experience, right? That if you will, abundance of everything, which is very much the feminine domain, right? Where I was going with this is, we started with Gaia and why she chose to experience 5D. Gaia is seeking to balance out her feminine flow, get back into her feminine vibration and get back into harmony. And she's also syncing up very much with the planet Venus. And that is why she's going to 5th dimensional consciousness, because that is her path of ascension. That is her alignment. And it is in her best interest right now to be in her femininity, to move from this a little bit polarized existence into more of a feminine bliss. And that is a choice. Could she have moved on to a 7? Yes, absolutely. That is a very different part to play. That is a very different thing to experience. That would be like going into the masculinity as opposed to the femininity. One is not better than the other. It is just a choice, right? And in the same way that you get to make choices, Planet Gaia also gets to make choices. But thank you for the question. And perhaps it wasn't too much of a tangent, answering it. What else can I answer for you as it relates to dimensions? Anything that would serve the collective, please? I'm actually getting the question about a third dimensional reality, right? Because that's what Gaia is experiencing right now. Why did Gaia select then a third dimensional, like a third density? Because clearly, she could have just gone to the 5th dimension and then just been in her harmony. So the question is, why would somebody choose to experience, in this particular case, why did Gaia choose to experience a 3D? Now, Gaia has been on a big merry-go-round between dimensions. Like she's moved dimensions many times over already over the course of her existence as a planet. She has been in 5th dimension not too long ago. So she's actually, her most recent path is moving from 5D to 3D to 5D. Why would you do that? Like, why would you drop and then go back? So she was in this harmonious state. And she realized, or rather the higher self of the being that is Gaia, realized that there are some things that haven't been addressed for the soul of Gaia, between the duality of good and bad, black and white, evil and good and evil, if you will. Because of that, it has been selected by Gaia that she would essentially go back to experience the fullness and the rawness of this experience, of this conflict of good and evil, and really live it up to the fullest. And invite all of the souls that want to live that conflict right alongside her to the fullest. And that was the choice that was made because Gaia at soul level wants to close up that tab, that open tab, and once and for all understand where it stands in this grand conundrum of good versus evil. And it frankly wanted to harmonize those energies within itself. And so it wanted to go through, as it was going through that experience, it attracted other souls that were going through the same exact experience, right? Now that this conflict is largely resolved and Gaia has picked a lane, right? It is ready to go back into harmony once again, right? And then she'll, choose something else, right? Depending on what is most aligned with her personal evolution at that time. Do we have another question? I'm ready to take one last question around dimensions. Anything that we discussed today, or perhaps any other dimension, anything that you were curious about? The question is, so when planets incarnate, they can move between dimensions. Can souls move between dimensions? Yes, yes, it is possible, right? You can be an incarnated body, right? And you can choose to shift density. But this is usually a lot more common dimension 7 and up. So from dimension 7 and up, usually you're able to jump very easily as an incarnated being between the different dimensions. It is not quite so quick and fast and easy here, right? And of course, like for instance, if we're talking about a human incarnation, the switch from one density to another takes so long that the short span of a human life does not allot enough time in order for that to happen. So right, it would not happen from a perspective of a 3D human. But for other dimensions, when lifespans are very different and time flows very differently, yes, it is entirely possible. And by the way, there are all, like, you can project yourself when as you're being incarnated from higher dimensions, you can project yourself into a lower dimension. Like you can split your resource and go into a particular state that would allow you to do that, and you can split yourself between multiple dimensions. So yeah, that is available as an experience if you choose to have that experience. Alrighty, my loves. Well, I hope this wasn't terribly complicated. If you're watching this on YouTube, please drop it in the comments how you're feeling about this whole dimension conversation. If you want me to keep going, if you want me to talk about dimensions 8 through 12 and what happens in all of them, or if this was enough, because honestly, frankly, I understand higher dimensions are really, really lofty, may not be relevant for you. Alrighty, my love, sending you a big virtual hug. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.